Today I have Khara Collins, which is one of my favorite clients, but don't tell anyone. She is also a Californian-based, Texas-raised artist with degrees in art and psychology. How awesome is that? Like combining art with psychology. And after spending a decade in an industry she wasn't passionate about, she left to pursue her dream of being a full-time artist. So today we will talk about how to change your career and go after your dreams with Kara. Welcome, Kara.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we've been talking about this for a while and it's so cool to finally be on here and be able to share this experience with you.
Yes, me as well, because we talk a lot. Like we are talking about all these topics about being an entrepreneur, following your dreams, doing self-care rituals, and just sharing a lot about spirituality and self-help. So we thought like, why not bring this our natural discussions to you as well, so you can find your own gold nugget that will help you to change your career if you're like thinking about if doing the step or not and go after your dreams. So tell us a little bit more about you, Kara. How did you start it?
Well, I graduated from college with the two degrees, like you mentioned, the art and psychology, and I had set myself up for art therapy. Like that was my plan was to go and get my art therapy degree. But by the time I was done with those two degrees, I was like done with school. And so I just wanted to start working. And my dad had been in the oil and gas industry like my whole life. And I saw that he made like decent money. And I had it in my head that, I I didn't want to like do my art for money. Like I felt like it was gonna ruin it for me. And like you always hear that artists, they're like starving artists or like they don't make a lot of money. And so I went and pursued a career in oil and gas. And throughout that career, I did do some art on the side, but it was just enough to kind of keep me going. And after I guess 5 years, I left for the first time in oil and gas. Like I left and started to work at a trade school, and I worked part time for a while. And I was able to focus on my art more. And I also had my son during that time, so it was like a really cool time to lean into becoming a mom and kind of explore my art a little bit more. I won like an international board art contest during that time, which was really cool. My art was really like surf themed, like that was kind of my thing, was like surf art. And that was like kind of a boost. And right after that I got another oil and gas job and got back into the like stream of money, I guess you could say. Like I vowed never to go back, and then I just had this insane opportunity to like pretty much do the peak of like what my dreams were for that field, which was training and development. So I got hired on as a training coordinator and moved up really quick to being the supervisor within a year, I guess, or 2 years maybe. And well, being a leader was something that I'd always been like pushed to do in other roles, but I just didn't think like that was for me because of like the culture that I was in these different places. Like especially for the women, it was very catty and like lots of talking behind each other's backs and just like cutthroat, like trying to get up there. So being given that opportunity to be a leader in that field was like kind of amazing for me because it allowed me to reach this goal of making like six figures, which was my whole goal to begin with. Like that was what I
Hmm.
wanted to kind of prove to myself.
Yeah.
And I got to kind of change the whole view on what it means to be a leader as a woman in this heavily male dominated industry.
Cool.
I had a team of like four people that worked under me, and they were all girls, which is something that for me, I was kind of worried about at first, but like these were all like my coworkers and I'd already been working with them. They were used to me. And so it was kind of like a perfect little like flow into this leadership role. And there was a lot of like freedom that they had to like do what they needed to do, but we still like got a lot done. And we were able to create this whole like our own little culture where we're all helping each other out and like lifting each other up, and it's not like we're tearing each other down. And
Oh.
it was a really amazing experience, and I'm super thankful for it. But I definitely got to a point where, this was like my cap. Like I had reached six figures and I had been there for a minute. And like the moment I realized that I reached six figures, it was like a big deal for me because I was like, this is what I've been working for the last 10 years. And now I actually have it. Like, I can't believe I did it. Like, and I'm like so young doing it. Like, not that I'm like super young, but like for me, it was like one of those things that, my dad didn't reach that until he was like older, I think. And like my mom never did. So it just felt kind of surreal to like have this opportunity to experience this goal that I had set for myself and just kind of prove to myself that I could do it. But on the same side, that also just was like, well, what does that mean? Like, that was it. That was my only goal here. I'm doing the job that I always wanted. They wanted to push me. They wanted to keep me going up, like in upper management. And I just had no interest in that. I still had that belief about like, and it wasn't really just a belief, it was the reality that when you get further up in these companies, it does get very political. And I didn't want to be involved in that kind of high level, like political stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up stepping away from it this last November. And, you know, the hardest part for me was like I didn't have anything set up to get into. And it was very hard for me to like stop myself from applying to the same types of roles
Mm-hmm.
because of the money only. And I I remember having this conversation with one of my coworkers. It's so crazy. It was like I didn't even know I was going to be quitting, but it was like the weekend before I quit, and I remember like telling him like, I've never had an issue with money. Like I've always had like enough money. Like somehow like I've always worked really hard. Like I've always had jobs and like made sure that I've had enough money because I never wanted to be without money. And somehow like it's just worked out. And I feel like having the experience in this career is like showing me that I can always fall back on that, and I have that in me to make it if I want
Mm-hmm.
to. But at the same time, it's like if I can do something like this for a company and like a career thing that I'm not like passionate about, like imagine if I did something that I was and what that would do. Like if I went all in on something I really wanted to do, why wouldn't I make as much money or
Mm-hmm.
more? And then like that next Wednesday or something is when I quit. And like he actually reminded me of that conversation like a couple months after like I had quit, and I was just like, "Oh my God." It was like it was like I knew but I didn't. I don't know. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
was the drop off point to
yeah.
like the void.
Mm-hmm. And it's like when you overcome one of your goals, it's like you feel you can overcome anything. And it's like you have this, you find in yourself this superpower of, I can do this, so I can do anything. And this is what I was talking with Kara before getting into the podcast. I'm now taking my driver's license, and because it's like this huge goal that I ran away from all my life, now I feel like, okay, now I can move the mountains and do anything because I'm now taking my driver's license. And anytime um, like we set up goals, we take these personal challenges and we overcome them. In fact, we are raising our self-esteem and we are raising our capacity of, overcoming more and more and getting to our even like next level. And I wanted to ask you, like, how many years did you do art therapy so that you can get into gas in like 1 second, gas and oil? Like for you did like from kindergarten to like including your university, like your BA was in arts, right? Like your
Yeah, like I mean, I've been drawing since I was little, but I didn't really get into it probably until like seventh grade. So I don't know if that's like 12 maybe.
Mhm.
And then my degrees, they took like 5 years for me to complete. And yeah, I've been ever since I started in at like 12, I've been um continuing to do art in some capacity. Sometimes there's periods of time where I don't for a while, but I feel like I always come back to it. And what I
Mm-hmm.
find is that like when there are long periods of me like not doing it is when there's some chaos happening. Like my therapist pointed that out like years ago, and then I started like noticing that that was the pattern. So um it's been really important to me since quitting that I start like incorporating that kind of ritual of art back into my life, whether it's just like sitting in my studio or just journaling or taking notes or like looking through magazines to get inspiration, like bringing that back into like my life is like one of the things that I'm like, trying to embody and like make something of it now
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that I'm sharing that experience with people because previously, like, it was just me throwing my art up on my Instagram and like not really saying anything about it. But I've started sharing more about like the experience of my art and like how it is for me, like making it or just different things that I've like come to realize and like some of it is through my art um which is just really cool to share and then it sparks other people like to share about their experiences so
Yes,
pretty
yes.
awesome.
And that's one of the most beautiful things we managed to co-create in our work together. And the fear of being seen is, especially for artists and for women, is like something that from an early childhood we are taught that you need to be quiet, you need to to stay in your place. You need to be this perfect girl that only smiles and never cries and is never angry, and everything. If people will, in this way people will like you and you'll have a good life and everything and you'll die happily ever after. But it's like this is one of the most, like, the deepest blocks we have in expressing ourselves, especially as artists, because like you need to share what's in your heart and you need to share it with the world. So if you've been quiet down in this place of I need to hide myself or it's not safe to go outside and share my work, so you'll put like a feet in front of your other feet, like you're blocking yourself from showing your gifts that people truly appreciate. But this is a lot of condition. Like in this, we are talking about years of conditioning, and you, I know like your story more in details, but like tell me a little bit, what was the conditioning of being an artist and wanting to share your work? It was the fear of being seen, and also like artists don't make so much money, right?
Yeah.
And who were the people in your life that like taught you this belief? Were the teachers in the school? Were like members of your family? Why was so hard for you after so many years spending creating art? Like for 20 years you spent art and then you choose another profession to make money. What was that conditioning that stopped you from getting out in the world and starting to create art and making money from the beginning of your career, let's say?
Yeah, so I feel like there was some conditioning like growing up, of course, like, I feel like most people go through this phase of, like, creating art and then somehow feeling like they're not good enough or, like, they don't get the prize, and, like, there wasn't, like, a specific instance like that for me because I continued to do it, but I just remember being told by just different family members, like, that, "This isn't gonna make you any money, so you need to figure out, like, what's gonna make money," like, and kind of focus on that, and what's funny is when I started college, my original degree was marine biology because I was like, well, this is something that'll make money and like I love the beach. So, you know, but then I like take a look at this degree plan. It's like so math and science heavy, and that's just not for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up choosing two things that I was extremely interested in and just I found art like to be so fun. So I ended up like pursuing that. And I did really well. Initially, like, my, college that I went to, here in Texas was very, like, they were, like, pushing me in the right direction, like, I met some resistance with my art, but it was, like, growth kind of, like, causing, which I mean, the resistance I met later on in college was also caused some growth, but this was like positive. So like I was on the higher level art track and um, you know, in shows every month, like doing really well, feeling like, okay, maybe this is something I can do. I ended up partnering with a couple of like local artists that kind of took me under their wing and started showing me the ropes of like shows. And one of them even wanted me to start screen printing for him in California, and like all these cool things were happening. And at the time, like, my boyfriend was from Indiana and wanted to move back there and was like, I don't know if we're gonna make it if we do long distance. So like I left all that behind and went to Indiana, and they hated me there. Like my content was all like very surf and ocean based. They didn't like that. They didn't support screen printing. So like that was basically my whole like plan at the
Mm-hmm.
previous school was to screen print. So um, I got rejected from their program like twice and ended up with like the lower art degree, which in the scheme of things doesn't really matter. Like I
Mm-hmm.
still feel like I got like a really good education and experience from it, but I feel like having that ending to my art degree kind of helped kind of like solidify any like beliefs that had been planted previously that, oh, you can't make money from this, or oh, this, you can't be
Yeah.
successful at this, um and so I didn't even consider like pursuing an art path like as a career after that, because I was just, you know pretty salty about that, and that's kind of what leads into the naming of my whole salty screen like art
Mm-hmm.
page, is from that whole like experience. And it's kind of funny to think about because it's like one of the first prints that I did in school here in Texas was this um, bird and a fish, and the bird was on the bottom and the fish was in the sky. And I remember them saying like, "Oh, like." This is like this has like a dreamlike quality. It's very surreal. Like, what was like the thinking behind it? And they specifically mentioned like fish out of water. And looking back, like I think about that print, and that's also where the fish comes from in my logo, is like from that print, because it was oddly predictive of what happened next, which was me like this like beachy like ocean person, like never lived that far from the beach, to going completely landlocked and just like rejected basically from this craft. And yeah, so it's been like there's been some ups and downs, but I'm on and up again, and I feel like I'm finally getting out of this like idea of, I'm not able to make money from this, or I can't be happy doing this like and make money from it type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really
Yes.
exciting.
Yes, it's sad, it's sad that we sacrifice our dreams for following this, you know, um, work, jobs that our parents, society, our grandparents, everybody has their saying in our future. But who is the one living our lives? But we, like, finally, yeah, like for me, it was like this. I needed to. My mother would pick the high school for me, and I would pick like my university, my BA. So my mother picked for me mathematics, technology, and like I was like doing 10 hours of math per week, 11 of coding and programming, and I was like five straight, like all like bottom line of the class, because I was like more on the, languages and art and being intuitive and working with visuals and things like that. And it killed me. Like for 4 years, I was in constant anxiety, comparing myself with all my colleagues that seemed smarter. I felt not good enough. And finally, I managed to choose my BA as psychology, and I followed my dreams. But think about what could have been if I followed that to do as a career in my life, to be a math, like a programmer or something like that. Like, mm, it's really sad that we our parents think that they know what's best for us, when in fact we know what's best for us. It doesn't matter that now programming is really like highly paid, and you get more jobs if you are in the field. It really matters, like, if this will help you, it will make you happy, because if not, at some point you'll stop doing it, and maybe you'll get to the point of being also like burnout, unfulfilled, having your relationships like unhappy, like everything in your life is affected by what you're doing as a career, because it's like most part of our lives. So if you're for 10 hours in an unhappy place, then you'll bring that with you in the rest of the all the areas in your life as well. So I'm happy that you are a beautiful example. I am a beautiful example that after you know trying to do as others than we did as ourselves, and even if that is a whole journey, of course you're still after 9 months you'll still have this whole world ahead of you where you'll figure it out, and that's what we work together. I help Kara to like set some goals, to post on Instagram, create a course, create a retreat, set up boundaries with her time, with her artwork, and promoting and making a lot of money, because I want her to succeed, because through her I see every human being that had a dream and in fact decided to stay at their job. Like by you taking the decision, like stepping out of your comfort zone, quitting your job, quitting the six-figure business that we fantasize about. Oh my god, I will be so happy if I will be having like six figure and four people in my team. That sounds so cool. And but when you get there, you're like, oh my god, this is like, I'm so unhappy here. I need to do something that I really like. So by doing all the steps and like taking a loan from the bank, doing everything that stands in our power to do, and do the healing work associated with this transition, you are able to follow your dreams, and you can. It's totally possible. Like it's totally tangible if you really desire in your heart to do that. And as I said, with this step, it does not only mean that you will need to, change your career, find your dream, follow a path, but it also triggers a lot of wounds from the past. And for me, when I quit my job, for example, I brought my like uh, constantly working this mindset of the hustle paradigm. I brought it into my business, and I was like working to 12 hours per day, working during the weekends. So I needed to heal that part of me that couldn't stay still, couldn't take breaks during lunch, because now I was creating a business that was me, that was my own creation. So I didn't know how to create it. So I need to heal this old past version of myself that was constantly workaholic, and, like putting my business on the top priority and myself as a second priority. So I had a lot of healing to do with this step from taking going from a career to following my dream path, let's say. What was some healing that you that come up for you when you quit your job, Kara?
Man, definitely the hustle mentality and, like, the idea that you have to, like, work hard for money, and I feel like, our sessions that we've been having them, like, pretty much weekly since February, and the amount of progress that I've been able to make, like, through the hypnosis and through, like, our discussions has been just astronomical. Like, I've been in therapy for, like, 7 years, and I had maybe 3 breakthroughs like that. And I feel like it's a combination of, like, that being my sole focus now is, like, this healing, and then having this awesome, like, modality to, like, practice, finding what these things are and where they come from has just been extremely powerful for me. Just a lot of times how simple what it comes down to, like what triggered it or what started this whole belief is just like it's like a firework, and like once you figure out like that's what it is, it just kind of starts to unravel because once you see like you kind of zoom out and see like what's actually going on, you can kind of continue to spot these different patterns. And like each time we have like one of those sessions where we go back through the hypnosis, it's like there hasn't been one session that I haven't had some kind of like realization or some kind of meaning come through that helps me like let go of something I need to let go of or rewire some thought that I'm having reoccurring. And it's been really cool to see like kind of the quantum leap that I've been able to make in the last few months just from putting myself first, like putting my mental health first, um, which is something that's so important and often overlooked. And I think there's a lot more awareness of it now because of, COVID and everything else kind of forced people to kind of turn inward a little bit. And
Yeah.
I'm just like so proud of myself for like making that like the priority because I feel like that's the biggest obstacle is like getting out of your head and what you think things are supposed to be like and not like letting yourself kind of flow into like what it could be like for you. So, yeah, trying to find that flow now.
And I am proud of you. I'm really proud of you because you got out of your own way. First of all, by choosing, like, first thing you did when you quit your job was also to invest in working with someone, which was something that not everybody does. Like, and I was the same. Like, I took a loan from the bank and I was like so scared that I will not make money through this business that I chose not to invest in everyone and just keep my money and like split them per month. So I'd be like 1 year if I don't have any clients. And I got into this scarcity mindset, that like I was attracting not having clients because I didn't like believe in my business. And you're like, fuck this, like I'm going to invest from the first month, I'm going
Yes.
to take some. And this is the mentality that brought you this quantum leaps and you managed to do in 9 months when I what I managed to do in years because I didn't had the power in myself to like this is what I'm going to do, it will work, I don't care, like I'm investing my money, I'm doing the work. And I'm the guide, but you are the creator. I'm like just like a fairy guiding you here and there.
Yes.
You are the one that does the steps and you are the one that do the work and constantly do your self-care practices and having this breakthrough and thinking by yourself where this is coming from. And that's what I love most about hypnosis because you know that I did talk therapy for 5 years as well and I had three breakthroughs as you did. Like it takes this filter of all the fears, of all the blockages, all the conditioning, the voice of our parents, of our partner, and it gets all of this out of the way so you can tune into who you truly are and what are your desires. What do I want to build in this life? How do I want my life to look like? And what are my dreams? And this is what is really cool about hypnosis that it takes all these layers and it's like it meets you with yourself. And it's a work that indeed helps you to quantum leap, but it comes from yourself as well. So don't think about only that it's the power of hypnosis, but it's also like the power of your own work and your own healing. Because there is no hypnosis, it's only self hypnosis because you allow it to happen. I cannot hypnotize you without your will or like making you send me all your money in your bank account or things like that. You are doing all those things because you allow them to happen. So I love all the shifts that we did together and all the shifts that you are continuing to do. I remember even our last session, you are like, oh my God, I had this breakthrough. I'm so happy. And okay, let's
Yeah.
celebrate. Like, I'm like, every time I'm doing like a dance, every time you're sharing with me something. And I really love when you share with me because it feels like I'm there with you, seeing your happy face, celebrating another breakthrough. And that is huge. And it's not an easy journey. It's a journey that's continuing to unfold, even for me. I still have things to work on my money mindset. Like every new goal brings a new layer of us that needs to be healed. We are not perfect. We are humans, especially when we work from the heart with like art and our business, our past. Like there are so sensitive stuff that, of course, that there will bring new things to the light to be healed.
Yeah.
And um So tell our listeners, because I really know and I really love your work. How do you combine your work? How are you doing your practices before creating something? How you use your emotions in your art process? This is something I really love about you, your creative process. So share us a little bit about that.
Okay, so since this beginning of this journey, I've been thinking a lot about intention, trying to bring awareness to the present moment. That's something that I had a really hard time doing and I still struggle with like pretty often, but it's getting easier. And one of the ways I like to do that is through meditating or just, lighting a candle and saying a little prayer as I light it before I
Mhm.
start like any kind of practice. I have one lit right now in the bag. And, with my art, I have I started trying meditating before I did my art because in the past, like I have so many notebooks where like they're really cool to look at. They're like scrapbooks of my art. So like I'd have like all of the inspiration and kind of plan out like what it's gonna look like and little scribbles and doodles of like the layout and everything. And it comes to life and it's really cool. And there's like I always get something out of my art. Like even if I do plan it out, it's like I'm not thinking about like why I want this here. It's like, "Hey, this looks cool and I like the way it looks and here's what it's like." And then afterwards reflecting on it and thinking like, "Okay, like I think this is what's happening here or I'm seeing this theme now and I can kind of interpret like here's what's going on." But kind of flipping that on its head and starting out with the intention of creating something or just like meditating and seeing what comes up and basing my art on that. And I've done it with people in mind, which has been kind of a cool experience because I did it with one of my really good friends who I hadn't talked to in a long time. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'm trying something different where I'm just, meditating and I'm going to see what comes up and just paint whatever comes up for me. And I sent him a sketch after I meditated of, like, what I was thinking, and I had already, like, started, like, painting it out a little bit, and he was like, "I've painted this before," and I was like, "What?" And after I was done and we looked at these 2 pieces side by side, it was, like, insane. I was like, "How did I know?" Like, I don't know where it came from, but I after that experience, I also started incorporating, like, my oracle deck, which is something
Mhm.
that, um, I was really reluctant to start using, but I've, like, shifted my mindset, like, these are just, like, creative sparks kind of, and they're, like, helping you to activate your intuition. I like to think of them as, like, intuition training wheels, like,
Mhm.
like, you can pull these cards and, see what they have to say, and I like to pull a card sometimes if I'm having a hard time coming up with something, pull a card for that piece of art and see what comes up, and the connections that have been made through that art too has been really, really cool, like, um one of the girls that I'm in this community with, she and I had a call and we'd only spoken a few times and I was asking her about like her spiritual awakening and what that was like. And she started telling me this story about her family and how she got this tattoo to like commemorate this experience. And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. Like, what's the tattoo?" And she was like, "It's a lotus." And I was like, "Wow, that's so awesome. Like, I just painted a lotus." And she
Mhm.
shows me this tattoo, and it's like the exact painting. I was like, "What?" And then I started telling her how, like, I started doing this new practice with these oracle cards, and I pull a card and, paint what comes up. And the card that I pulled for this one was seed. And I asked her if she has an oracle deck. So she gets her deck out. She's like, "Yeah, I'm going to show you. You're going to love it." She pulls a card, and it is the trust card with the butterfly, which was one of the other cards that I had pulled and painted was the trust card, and I painted a butterfly. It was like the life cycle. So it was just like crazy to have like boom,
Yes.
boom, boom, all these things happen from me just like tapping into like myself before I begin something. And also sharing like some of the realizations that I've had to be able to get to this point of like sharing my process, because that's another thing I started doing with recording like my experience painting, basically just drawing everything and starting over a lot because it's not planned. So sometimes things that come out like I think they're gonna look good and then I don't like them, so I start over. But just sharing that experience with other people and letting them see like, hey, it doesn't always come out perfect the first time. You have to start over a few times sometimes, and that's okay.
Mhm.
um and like it's been really cool to hear other people's experiences that are triggered from me sharing mine. um and I think that's like one of my next like goals is to have build a community around that, like around sharing my art and my experiences and inviting other people to start creating experiences for themselves. Even if they're not artists, like everybody can tap into that and gain something from it by like just letting themselves like come out basically. And sometimes it's harder for people to articulate how they feel, and you can really get to some really deep stuff through art. So I'm
Mhm.
excited to see like where this goes.
Yes, it's like through your own transformation, through the fact that you overcome the fear of being seen, the fear of sharing your gifts. Not only that, you started to receive more people in your world that were like that were admiring you for like overcoming all these fears. But now, because you integrated this, you can now teach it to others and teach other people how they can do this your own process through art. And this is one of the most beautiful things that happen in healing, that once we learn a lesson, because every challenge that we have hides this hidden message, and it's like an underlying lesson that if you master that, then you get into your next level. And if you master the fear of being seen and sharing your world and be vulnerable through your own words and creative process, then you're now this master that has this power to teach other people your own process. And that's really beautiful. And I love how you shared about meditation and all the healing practices that you do, because I feel like when I lean into my feminine energy and I do a meditation or I do an embodiment practice, because we did an embodiment practices together as well, and we moved our bodies, we released emotion, we used music, we danced, we kick the pillows, we release the anger. When you get deep into your body and into the feminine energy, you're connecting with this higher creativity and you start to receive, like you're tuning to this invisible field where other creative minds live as well. So it's not a coincidence that you painted the same paint, like the same art as somebody else, or you had the same idea, because you're like in this process of doing these practices, you're elevating your state so you reach a higher level of consciousness. So that's why one of the first things that in my process with my clients and that I did with you as well was to set up some morning routines that can set you up for having a creative day ahead, or to release any emotions that come from the past. When you have this healing toolkit of yourself, like an embodiment practice, a meditation, some journaling questions that you can use, all the hypnosis that we work together, like you also have them because I sent you on the email, then you have this backup drive that you can go to and lean into and overcome any challenge that shows up in your life so you can master it into a lesson. And that's really beautiful. I love that you're at this new level now, that you're preparing yourself to become the teacher that will teach others your own process. And I cannot wait to see the community that you'll build. And we were thinking to also organize a retreat together to now I invited her into my podcast because she also wants to open up a podcast and to share um, her own process and creative process. So I'm going to leave it in the footnotes your Instagram card so our listeners can find you and follow your journey and see your beautiful paintings. And lately, I love that you started posting your TikToks with the process of creating your painting. That's really awesome. And there are a lot of amazing things in your future, and I'm really excited to be here and guide you in this journey and hold your hands so we can, uplevel humanity with following more our dreams and following less society structures, conditioning, and rules that brings more money but doesn't bring fulfillment. So let's say as an ending to our podcast and to our beautiful discussion, what is a message that you want to share with someone that is like thinking about following his dreams or being afraid to invest in themselves? What's a message that you can share from you mastering your lesson and being on this new level?
Um, I guess it's something that I've kind of like thought of myself in the past like year, is like, is the risk staying where you are? Like, what's the risk of staying where you are versus like taking a leap on something like a dream that you want to like become reality? For me, like the risk was too great to stay in the same place and spend another 10 years in a career that I wasn't passionate about. Like, I'm willing to take this leap and see if this works out for me because I don't want to look back when I'm like 60 and wish I would have done XYZ or would have like tried, you know? And it's like all of those things you hear from like the 100-year-olds that are like, what's the
Yeah.
best advice you could give? It's true. It's like, don't care so much about what other people think, like go after your dreams and like take those chances on yourself because soon enough it'll be like another 10 years and you'll still have been just in this wheel of like somebody else's dream and you can go off and
Wow.
create your own instead.
Wow, somebody else's dream, living in somebody else's dream. This is like sounds like a book. This can be your future book. We were talking about you creating a book as well. This sounds like an amazing title for it.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
right. That's you summed it perfectly. And it's important to follow our dreams because it's the lessons that we will leave to the future generations. If we are the brave ones, then we will leave behind. You have a son, we plan to have kids, and we want to live this, that we were the brave ones. We took the step of creating a life that is sounds, feels, and looks like us and not like somebody else. And that's a really beautiful, amazing journey to have. I hope you found something beautiful from our talk today. And it was a pleasure to have you in my podcast as a guest, Cara. It was lovely to talk with you today. So thank you for following us and listening to us today. And we will see you at the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye.